Thank you for being here or listening to this recording. This is our session about Codependent No More. And today is very rich actually. We're gonna go over chapter 8, and I was just reading it like I wanted to share everything about it. It's really good. And it's about the place of the victim, and so I think it's really, really good, this one, really. And so to start with, I just want to set up my intention to be of service today for everyone that is watching this and myself and the highest power in all of us. So I'm going to start with that. Oh, and also just last week I was in a panel, so I couldn't do this live. And for some reason Instagram doesn't like me, and so I recorded the video and couldn't upload it to my IG TV, but it's on YouTube, and so you can go and see the link I share with you in my bio, but also in the post from last week, which also was very rich. And so if you are interested in, go back and watch it. Cool. So I wanted to start. So as usual, I start with like my own insights, and then I go over the chapter. And I wanted to start with this idea of how can we find the path of the middle, or like the middle ground in things. And I'm saying this because I read a really good meme about rushing relationships, and so why is it that we rush into relationships? So I'm gonna read you and then see where we can find the middle. And so it says, and pay attention if you feel connected to this. So why you rush into relationships, and one thing was because your needs were met inconsistently or inadequately. So, hey Mickey. So if that happened to you, you have difficulty tolerating uncertainty in early dating relationships. And so this makes a lot of sense. Like if you grew up and you were not taken care of appropriately, then you will need to like sort of like rush into a relationship for the person to like according to your mindset to take care of you, or you take care of them. And so that's why you rush. And so you seek to create stability and safety through rushed commitment. So that's the first reason. The second reason is that you experience emotional neglect or abandonment, another classic for codependency. And so you self-neglect through obsessive thoughts or fantasy thinking, and hence you confuse intensity for intimate connection. I think this one is pretty clear to me, where we seek for intensity, and so we pair up with people that are very troubled, or like folks that like their lives are a mess, so that we feel that if we create like this intensity in our lives, that means that we're connected to them. But I think it's time to think about how that is maybe not true connection, like because we're like in this codependency, we don't know actually who we are or who the other person is, and so it's not intimate, although it feels pretty intense, and the rush of it is like really fulfilling for a moment, not necessarily that you're getting to be close to that person. And then the third reason is you were not modeled self-soothing. So you feel relief from anxiety through attachment or high on love, as I was telling you, this like high feeling. And so you use relationships as an escape from painful feelings. So all of this is why you rush into a relationship. I think is very accurate, it's very good. But then how we find the path of the middle, which is what I wanted to talk to you today, is how we find truth in this, and truth in the fact that as codependents, we need commitment. And my therapist always says like commitment is your healer. And so how is it that I go on dating without rushing into commitment, but acknowledging that commitment is important for me? And so how to find the middle ground. And I've seen like different options for this that I feel like really interesting. I have a friend of mine who, for example, dates a person for 2 months to see if they like each other, like if they are a good match. And after 2 months, she just asked them for a commitment, for a partnership. If the person says no, then move on, and if they say yes, so that works, you know. And so you can do that. You can find sort of your own kind of a rule that works for you, so you're not rushing, but you're honoring that you need commitment. Sometimes we go to like the extreme opposite of this, so you know that you need commitment, but instead of that you go and do like polyamory, which is, there's nothing wrong with that, but if you're not, it's not what you want but what you wish you would like to have, then you're gonna go on like polyamory relationships where you feel really hurt, or you hurt the other person, or you're just not there, open relationships that didn't work. And so what you need to know is what you need and ask for it, but not rushing this. And so this is like the middle point that I was talking about, that I feel is difficult to find. And then the other thing I wanted to share with you is I was having a session with a bunch of friends, and so one of them was saying like, oh, finally I am with someone that I don't want to fix. And I was just like, oh, that's we say in Spanish, me cayó el 20, because I can see how constantly I would pair up with people that I want to fix. And this is so basic, but to be honest, like it takes time to like actually get it. Hola Dani. And so I was just like, okay, let's go back and think. And yeah, I could see like I wanted to fix the person that was an alcoholic. I wanted her to get back to her life, recover her passion for life, cure her depression, be sober, and I just wanted to fix her. And then moving more and more, I wanted my partner that was emotionally dependent of someone else to like leave them and be with me, and so I wanted to change them. So again, how is it that we find the middle, you know? Because yeah, there's things that you don't like about the person you're related with, your friend, your mother, you know. And so how is it that you find a way where you don't want to change the other person completely, but you also know that there are some things that you don't like about them, right? And so I feel like the only way you can respond to that is to look at your heart and see your real intentions. And so I know, Dani, that this should be in Spanish, but the book we're reading is in English, and hopefully someday I will do this in Spanish as well. I'm trying to figure out that. But in the meantime, te mando mucho cariño y a ver si practicas tu inglés también. So how can you see that there is a person where you can relate horizontally, you know? Because again, like I'm telling you, really recently I was trying to connect with a person, and then I was just like, oh, but I want to fix them. I want them to live what they want. I want them to live this relationship that is not good for them. So that is the fixing setting of us. And as we have seen before, what happens when you pair up with someone that you don't need to fix? Oh, then this is really scary, because what is your value if you're not rescuing them, if you're not helping them to be better, like fixing their life? So then why they are with you? And so what we see here, really interesting, is that at the bottom of codependency there is something about low self-esteem, of course, where we don't know exactly what is our value as people, you know. And so that is something to look at. And as I was saying the last session, this knowledge that we're doing, this work is tough and it's difficult, and so take care of yourself, be compassionate, you know, but look at those things that need to be seen. And so that was something for you to think about. Do you relate with people that you think you need to fix? Is like a lot of work relating to people or not? And that's gonna give you some good hints, you know. And then the last thing I wanted to share is because, you know, I see a lot of TV, and like I it's part of how I, you know, refresh and chill. So I'm watching this Netflix series that is called Girlfriends. It's like a little bit old, but and it has like problems and all, but I'm just like watching it. And you know, the main character, Joan, which is a lawyer, she is the classic codependent. And it's so interesting because now I'm in season 2. It's like all these issues with her friends are coming up. So Remember last chapter, the author says that codependents are really good workers. So that hit me, like, we're so good because we're people pleasers and we're very organized and we're very like, so yeah, codependents are like the great best like workers. And so Joan, this lawyer, is like a really good lawyer. Like she has all, like, in terms of her career, but then she relates to a person that is a sex and love addict in recovery, which is I mean, it's not bad per se, but it's just challenging. And then she has friendships where she is the caretaker of them. So one of them like lives out of her, basically her everything, like her house, her food, her, and then some other friendships are also challenging for her. And one of the things that the therapist tell her is, you gotta say no, the power of the no. And so I wanted to talk about that because we have it here a little bit. Is part of our healing has to do with saying no when we want to say no. So as codependents, a lot of times we feel like we need to take care of other people's feelings. And so we don't tell them, no, I don't want to do this, because we're like, well, but that's rude, that's cruel, that we should, especially like, I don't know, religion tells you, like, you have to be generous, you have to say yes, and so it's hard for us to say no. And how is it that you say no in a way that is compassionate, because then you can jump to the other side and be like a real cruel person, actually. And so that's not what we're looking for. And going over this chapter, we're gonna see some of that. So let's just jump right on the chapter, which is, and this is such a good topic, is remove the victim. And so this is allowing us to think how, as codependents, we take the place of the victim and how to like step out of it. So really powerful. And so one of the things that she mentions here is that when we take care of others, we are rescuing them, we think. So we are martyrs, we're heroes, we are saving people according to our narrative, right? And taking care of someone is pretty much the same as rescuing them, is what they are saying. And it doesn't have to be as like intense as in like, someone alcoholic, that was my dog. Someone like an alcoholic or something. It could be something simple, like a friend that has a problem and you have to help them to like solve it. So the whole chapter today, it's how as codependents you can jump in like 3 different places. So there is the place of the victim, there is a place of the persecutor, like the bully, and then there is the place of the helper, the rescuer. And so definitely you start rescuing, so you're in that place, and then the person you're rescuing gets mad, gets back at you, and so you became sort of like persecutor because you're trying them to do what you want. And then whenever they respond poorly, you become the victim. And so be very mindful of which is this like place here that you're taking every day, maybe even between the rescuer, the persecutor, and the victim. And yeah, Mauricio, Sergio is such a mess. She's a mess. So let's think about that. Okay. So something that hit me is, and I'm telling you, this girlfriend novela is really about that, is where when you are taking care of others or sort of like rescuing them, you're an enabler. So instead of allowing them to face the consequences of their acts, you are taking care of them, and so you are helping them to not change, to keep doing what they're doing. And so it's not helping you, it's not helping them, it's just a mess. And so it doesn't work, And she says something that I was just like, this is so interesting, where she was saying that you can spot a codependent right on whenever you start talking to them. I don't think we're all so like straightforward, but I was just thinking, I remember I have a friend, and I'm telling you this to see if you feel connected to that like some sort of someone like that. I had a friend who triggers me a lot because whenever I talk to her and I'm telling her about my life or whatever, she jumps right on telling me what to do or offering me solutions or like offering me things that I haven't asked for. And so I would say, I don't know, something simple like, oh man, I love yoga, I wish I could teach more, and like wishful thinking of mine. And she would be like, oh my god, I'm gonna set you up with this person, and then you're gonna have this class, and like I'm just like so overwhelmed. And I would be like, I'm not. But then it's a trap, because she is so like generous and like sweet and like smiling, and so you don't know why you're feeling off, because the codependent is just like jumping into your life, trying to solve your problems. You didn't ask for it. And then, as I am a codependent, of course I get triggered because I don't know how to say no. And so I'm like, oh, she's so generous, I should be thankful for what she's offering, but this feels so wrong, there's something there. And so the author says, like, two codependents are just really bad, because they both would keep pleasing each other and like go to hell until something really bad happens, because no one has the initiative to say like, stop. And so one of the things I'm training with this friend that I truly love is to say her like, no, I wasn't like asking for solutions, I'm just sharing with you something about my life. And so again, how can you do this in a way that is not necessarily cruel, but like they need to deal with their feelings, and I have to like be faithful to my own. So think about people like that you have in your life, because probably some of those things you do yourself, but you just don't want to see it. So I'm telling you about my friend, but a lot of those things I do myself. And so I had to sit and say, oh, okay, I'm getting triggered by her because that's something I don't like in me. So like pay attention to that. And let's see, she says here some of the caretaking actions that you can do are, for example, and definitely doing something we really don't want to do, saying yes when we mean no, doing something for someone although that person is capable of and should be doing it for themselves, meeting people's needs without being asked and before we agree to do so. So again, you gotta let people ask for what they need. So you don't have to be offering all the time help if you're not asked for it. It's like there's no way. Why would you do that? Yes, we're good people with like we have this as a habit, and so we gotta watch out. Doing more than a fair share of work after all help is requested. Giving more than what we receive in a particular situation. So codependents usually say, I'm so good, I'm so generous, and like people don't give me back what I give. And I constantly feel like less and less, but like I would be that person saying like, in a relationship, like I always give more and they don't match my my level of giving. And then I would think and read this and say like, why did you give all of that if you were not wanting to, or if you're resenting that? So you should have stopped at some point giving more than what you wanted or like what you were receiving. So that's a good point. And then not asking for what we want, need, or desire. So that's another important thing that and then like in general, solving people's life is something that we gotta watch out. And something that is really interesting here is that, and I was telling you, whenever you solve a person's problem according to you, you're interpreting them as helpless. Like there is some way, and I don't know if you're familiar with a course in miracles, un curso de milagros, but the course says constantly like, if you see your brother, your sister, your sibling, if you see them as hopeless, then you're not curing them. You're not helping them to be. You have to imagine the person that is in trouble as capable, as healthy, as And so when we go and jump and help people, we are putting on them this idea that they are helpless, and that's not true. I mean, only infants or like people that have specific needs are actually helpless, but not adults. And so part of what happens here is that when you understand someone as helpless, they get mad, of course, because they are not, and so you create something that is full of anger. So you're angry because you're helping them, and that's a lot of work, and then they get angry because they're like, I can do this myself, or like leave me alone. And so there is a lot of anger going back and forth in these relationships, and that's like a real issue. And I don't know if you have feel like that. I certainly have. sometimes where I feel angry at everything, when you're like, I don't know, I just, everything triggers me. I'm so mad at the world. And as we were seeing last session, like, yeah, there's a lot of reasons to be mad at, racism and like everything that is happening with the police and everything. But sometimes I do feel like we are so angry. And here it says, well, that's probably because you, as a codependent, feel so resentful of everything you do for others because you take care too much. So you put on your shoulders everyone's feelings, everyone needs everything, and you're resentful. And so I think I've told you all, but one of the things I do is the pathway for self-transformation, and that program is always telling me, when you feel angry at everything or everyone, there is something where you're acting out of your idealized self-image. So it's the idea that you want to be, or that you want to project to the world, but not your real self. So just like an example, I was talking to a friend today, and they were like, I don't want to do this, but I think I should, because I think I should be a good person and I be compassionate and blah blah blah. And I was just like, but you don't want to. So before judging yourself or like acting out of what you think is the idealized self, just accept that you don't want to do this, and that would help a lot to like everything. And so part of it is this, like and like see why we're not necessarily angry all the time, because we're just not doing what we don't want to do, and that's really important. And well, another thing I wanted to share is how this plays out with family members and with friends and like couples. And so, for example, I was thinking, and my mother is just the best, but I was thinking like she usually asks for help with technology because of like a generational issue. Hola, Caro. And so she would ask me to like help her with internet, or like with like Excel, or like whatever. And I started to like realize that instead of sort of like helping her with finding the resources, I would do it for her. So I would like tell her, or like go into her computer and help her, and then she like all the time is asking me questions about that, and it became something that is unhealthy. And probably you can think about your family and issues like that, things that they ask you to do and you're so regretful, like you're so angry, like, oh, my parents always ask me to do this and I hate it, but you keep doing it. And so that is something to look at. And what happens when you realize that that is not great and you stop doing it, they would get mad, because of course this has been something that happens a lot, and so they would be like, hey, why you're not doing things for me? And so you have to let them have their feelings and like behave as they need to behave, but you know that you're not doing what you don't want, and then that will help everyone else. And so that's another idea. Just a reminder that many codependents at some point we were victims, right? So that's how we became victimized. But something that she says here that I was just like, oh, is that as codependents we sort of attract perpetrators, or people that would take advantage of us, people that would cling on us and like don't grow, and we would not grow, and like it's just a circle. So that's something sad but true. And about the anger, of course comes the thing where you're gonna be sick at some point in your life, because anger is a very powerful feeling. If you have it like bottled up, it will make you sick somehow, of course. And so that's something important. And coming to the end, I maybe think, remember we have talked about how much codependents get drained socially when we go out and we have like a social setting, we would be so drained. Well, this is why we gotta learn how to say no. So when she says here that she can spot a codependent just talking, she was saying like, because I can see how they don't want to talk to me, but they would keep going. Have you had any conversations like that where you see the other person, their eyes are like, they are tired, they don't want to talk, but they keep going, and they don't want to, but you keep going, and it's just a waste of energy. So those are interactions in the social level where you're being codependent. And of course, after the party's over, you're like, I'm so exhausted, like this is so much. but it is because you didn't say stop when you should. You went and went and went. Yeah, right. So that is something that we have to think about and see. And let me just go over. Yeah, she said she tell us a really nice story about a friend of her. So it's funny, like the friend wanted to go and buy apples to like some place, and she didn't. She wanted to go at the beginning, but that she didn't. But she still like rescheduled and went with the friend, and they were both in the apple place, and they were like not enjoying themselves. And so all of a sudden, the friend says, I just didn't want it to come. I just did it because I was thinking that you might get hurt. And she said, oh, I didn't want it to come either. So it's funny, like they both were like just taking care of the responsibility of the other feeling, where you were not just saying, no, I don't want to, and we're friends and we love each other, but we just don't need this. And so those kind of interactions are what happens between codependents, which is a whole circus. And she goes, if you're interested in religion, she goes on reflecting on Catholicism, which I think, in Christianity, which is very interesting. As I was telling you, sometimes religion teaches to be codependent. So we gotta it's not that religion in itself is bad, but we just gotta watch out to the messages, that we have there. And whatever we do, we just don't want to become angry parents, angry friends, and angry lovers. What she says here, that's not great. We gotta keep our joy up, and instead of being so resentful about everything. And so, just to finish up, there is something she offers here. Remember, she always tell us about activities that we can do, and so the activities for this one are really powerful. And what she tells us is make a list of responsibilities that you have with your friends, with your family, with your partner, and then make a list of what are their responsibilities and compare to see if you're taking more than what you're asking them to do. And so that, I think, is really, really powerful. And then the second thing she offers here, which I'm going to practice right now, it's practice non-rescuing behaviors. So say no when you want to say no. Do things you want to do. Refuse to guess what people want and need, especially for men, I think. Men are trained to guess what women want if they're heterosexual, there is something about women would never tell you what they want, so you have to figure out. No, don't follow that pattern. If they don't ask, you just don't guess. And if you want something, just ask for it. And so I think that it's a great advice here. And then whenever you do this and start saying no, just observe what other people's feelings come up, but you don't take responsibility for them. You're just doing your work and let them be. It's kind of like her idea. So that was pretty rich, I think, and I'm just so ready to practice all of this, and so I'm really excited. And for the next week, we have the chapter on dependence, so that sounds good. It's not independence, on dependence, so we'll see what's that about. So thank you all for watching, and see you next week.